Carol Walker on Times Radio.
Welcome back to the programme. Now, have you already started Christmas coasting? Apparently, many professionals are taking a more laid-back approach to work, with more than a third saying they're more relaxed at this time of year. Just 5% say they feel guilty about reducing their workload, while 20% admit to putting off starting new tasks until the new year. But what does all this mean for our economy? Earlier, I spoke to Jonathan Davis, economist and author of the Boom and Bust Report, and Charlotte Lockhart, work culture commentator and founder of 4-Day Week Global. And I started by asking Jonathan whether the Christmas break is actually just getting longer.
Well, that would be very nice if it is. Of course, unfortunately, if you work in the leisure industry or retail, then I'm sure you're not clocking off. But for everyone else, hey, all work and no play makes Jack and Jill a very dull boy and girl. Everyone needs a break. And if they have an opportunity to take a break, they should have it and refresh and re-energise and then come back in January and start all over again. Fantastic.
Yeah, Charlotte, I mean, what is the attitude of businesses towards all of this? Obviously, as Jonathan has pointed out, it's very different if you're in the hospitality business or many other jobs that work right through the festive period. But do you get the sense that a lot of businesses are simply saying to their staff, yes, fine, beat the mad rush at the weekend, start your break early, or perhaps just work remotely?
Look, I think one of the things that the pandemic has done for us, and that we see this around the globe, is that we do actually have a greater sensitivity to where our staff are at. And, you know, at the end of the year, people are often very tired. And, particularly here in the UK, where you've got winter and short hours, it's showing that generosity, as Jonathan was saying, good on them. Let's just get a rest and come back refreshed, is very much borne out by what we see in our research, where when people are able to be rested, they are more productive. Now, okay, yes, there are obviously industries at this time of the year which this is their primary, one of their primary times. It's one of their peak times, and so they're not likely to be taking extra time off at this time. But then as employers, we need to make sure that they're getting extra time off when it is quiet.
I'm looking at reports of this new syndrome called Christmas coasting, Jonathan, where people are still working, but perhaps they're just taking things at a slightly slower pace. Is that something that is increasingly occurring?
Well, that's an interesting one. I mean, I work for myself, but back in the day when I worked for other people, I think I saw a lot of that going on. That was decades ago, or two decades ago. So I don't think there's any difference there. I mean, just think of all the parties that would start midweek and the week before Christmas. In other words, during the work week. People have been getting ready for the big break for a long time, and rightly so. As Charlotte said, look, we're all tired. It's been a long year. It's dark, it's cold, it's rainy, it's winter. I mean, thank goodness I live in the south of England rather than Glasgow, where I used to come from. Then it's dreary, and you feel terrible by this time of the year. November in Glasgow is not fantastic. The weather is awful. So we're all tired. We need a break. And employers should be delighted that people want to take a formal break, because it is going to help, to use that word again, re-energise. Let people have a week or two off. Fantastic. If it's within, of course, their holiday entitlement, I certainly support it in my practice. So I think everyone should. If the business can afford it, if you can reduce the staff for this period, it's an excellent time to do so, because most companies, I think, are taking it easier. Therefore, why push the boat out, as it were, when everyone else is taking easy? You're just driving against a brick wall. You might as well go with the flow and restart in the first week of January.
Yeah, and Charlotte, a lot of people will say, well, look, in this period, the last few days before Christmas, I'm not going to sign any big deals. I'm not going to land any major contracts. It's not that if I work in, let's say, recruitment, I'm going to suddenly be finding someone their dream job. So you might as well perhaps just use this time maybe to finesse your contacts over maybe a glass or so of something.
Yeah, I think that's very much the case, as people do use this time more for networking, more for, company culture things, staff Christmas parties, and actually just having a chance to enjoy being together and enjoying that festive season. And some of that also comes with just saying to people at 3 o'clock, go home. We've done our bit. And one of the things that we see through our research when companies look at making reduced hours as part of what they do, whether it's a 4-day week or a 30 or 32-hour week, is that people are very engaged in what is productivity in the business. And so they're quite connected to the idea around making sure that they are fulfilling in on those obligations. So the companies tend not to miss out, because when employers, sort of say, look, take a bit of extra time, staff really value that, and they value the impact on productivity that will have, and feel engaged with being able to make sure that when they come back with steam, which is what we're talking about is how do you come back with steam?
And Carol, let me add, I do this myself. At this quieter time, companies should take advantage, and employees, particularly career-minded staff, they should take advantage of the time that they have to reflect on what's happened in 2023 and what they can do to improve their prospects, improve the business in 2024.
Charlotte, you talked about the changing workplace and how much our attitudes have changed since the pandemic. Do you think there is a sense in which people are working from home, but of course that allows them to nip out to do some last minute shopping, maybe stick some mince pies in the oven and so on, and using this time to get ready for Christmas as well?
Absolutely, and so they should, because I don't know about you guys, but I've had a number of Christmases where I've got to the end and I've literally had no time to do all of these things. I might have bought Christmas presents earlier on in the season. I'm busy wrapping them on Christmas Eve. And so it's just actually being able to have that slower pace of life it's very good for us culturally within our organisations. It's very good for us as humans. It's great for our families and for us as a society, and it's really good for our health as well. So there are so many benefits that companies can participate in by just taking their foot off the pedal.
Yeah, absolutely. I certainly know what it's like to work right through the festive period as well. But Jonathan, what does all of this do for the economy overall? If we do have what's looking like a festive period that begins, sometime around now and doesn't properly end until January the 2nd or perhaps January the 3rd, what's that going to do for the economy?
In terms of base rates, which means mortgage rates effectively, commercial loan rates and so on, they've gone from practically 0% in early 22 to 5.25% now. In a hugely indebted economy, this is going to create severe problems, and I do not say that lightly, I'm not exaggerating, for the economy. And the fact that it hasn't yet done so doesn't mean it's not going to. There is a time lag between interest rate changes and the effects on the economy. So expect 2024 to be materially smaller as an economy than 2023. And indeed, I expect this Christmas trading to be smaller than Christmas last year. That's the general backdrop. Now, to answer your question, actually, I don't think it makes the blindest bit of difference, because slowing down at Christmas has always happened. What affects the economy is what's generally happening in the economy, not what might happen over a week or two. So, not much.
Charlotte, What do you make of that?
No, I agree. I mean, the reality is also how the lead up to Christmas always works depends on where in the week Christmas sits and how we view, our lead up to Christmas when Christmas is on a Monday compared with how we view it when it's on a weekend. And so there are elements of this that are just seasonal based upon, upon this of the annual cycle that we face. But your workforce when it's tired is not productive, and so actually taking the brakes off and giving people a chance to work less hours, but actually focused in those hours will in all likelihood you'll find that the productivity will be just the same. It's just that you've allowed people, as you've just described, to have a chance to make some mince pies.
Yeah, and just finally, I mean, Jonathan, the biggest issue for the economy presumably is also going to be that as we approach Christmas and the New Year, an awful lot of people are just going to be trying really hard to work out how they can do Christmas, have a good time, make sure everyone enjoys themselves, but really watching what they're spending their money on.
Over 1 million mortgages this year alone have had their fixed rate ended. So we've seen for, as I say, 1 million households, over 1 million, monthly mortgage costs go up 50 to 75% this year, and next year will be a similar number. This is a very sizable proportion of the households in the country. So, this is what I mean when I say the effects of interest rate and mortgage rate rises. And I believe this will filter through to pension fund values and indeed jobs. We've already seen unemployment start rising in the last couple of months, and I'm afraid to say we're likely to head into a sizable economic recession, falling economy, which means that unemployment is going to rise for many months to come. This is what people need to get to grips with.
Well, Charlotte, perhaps then that's just even more incentive to try and take a bit of a break and rest over Christmas.
Well, and also I think it's a warning for businesses to ensure that you have pulled the trigger that gets your staff enthusiastic about being productive when they are at work. So your business isn't one of the ones that will necessarily suffer. But when people take the brakes off, stop spending so much, and that does start to impact on our economy. So from a money point of view, and so therefore, perhaps we're not spending, for example, as much on Christmas presents and Christmas experiences, then actually the one thing that we can do that doesn't really cost much is just spend time together. And that's actually very good for us as a society. It's good for our emotional and our psychological health, our mental and physical health, but it's also quite good for us as a society. And so when we go through these tough times, it's about looking at how can we be there for each other that doesn't necessarily involve us having to open our wallets and show generosity with cash as opposed to doing generosity with spirits.
Well, that was Charlotte Lockhart, work culture commentator, founder of the 4-Day Week Global, and Jonathan Davis, economist and author of the Boom and Bust report, talking to me a little earlier.